To begin adding in the details in the back, here I'm going to start with taking one of these pillars and putting it on the edge of this angled block. And clone it to the other side. So maybe move it out just a little bit. And then select both of them and clone them to the right side. Move this one over. Looks about right. Next I'm going to copy this support on the top of my angled pillars and put it in the middle of the angled block. And just raise it up a little bit and center it. Next I'll copy this to the other side, roughly about the middle. And then copy this pillar one more time and place it on top of the support. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the draw scale of this pillar to 1. Or rather, bring it down to 0.9. And then clone it. And then select both of these and make sure they're just lined up a little bit more into the middle. Like that. Next, what I'm going to do is select this wall, or angled wall, clone it, and rotate it back so that it is straight, and move it over, and scale it back up to a value of 1. And I'll put this wall back here between my block and my round pillar. And I'll create 3 instances of this wall. Or 2 instances for a total of 3 copies of the wall. Next I'll select these wall sets and drag them to the other side. Like that. Next I'm going to add in a trim piece. So I'm going to go to my content browser and search for trim. The trim I'm looking for is this very first one, ASC Deco SM Trim 02. Select it into the world and just rotate it by 90 degrees. Again, using the space bar to quickly move between movement and rotation. And what I'm going to do is line this guy up with the pillar and the angled block and my wall, roughly around there. And smooth it out just a little bit so it's not cutting between the block, and duplicate it. We've made 4 copies of this trim. I'm going to select it, duplicate it, right click, transform around x-axis, make a mirror image, and place it over here. Now with this segment selected, I'm going to select the previous segment of trim and duplicate the entire set over to the middle, like so. And then duplicate it one more time for the back wall on the right. Next, what I'm going to do is take this wall piece and clone it and rotate it by 90 degrees and place it in between these trim pieces like that. Next, what I'm going to do is take my arch here and clone it and move it back. Select it, scale it down to 1, and try to center it. That's close enough. Next, I'm going to add in some more pillars by just duplicating the ones we have. Select it, duplicate it, and add it in to the very end. Select both sets, take it to the far right, just kind of select this one so it comes over. We can probably move this trim piece over, it's not lined up properly. Move it closer to the wall. And we can probably select this pillar and then move it over, and then make another copy right here. Finally, what we're going to do is we're going to take this window trim piece, duplicate it, rotate it by 90 degrees, and change the scale to 0.8, and move it to the back. We can probably even go up and bump the scale back to 1 actually. And just clone it. And then lastly, what I'm going to do is grab this trim up top and clone it and move it back. And line it up with the top of the wall and the arches and the pillar. And just duplicate it all the way to the right side. Select all the pieces of the trim. And try to center it just a little bit. It doesn't have to be super exact because this is more of a background piece. And lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these walkways just a little bit. I'm going to select these stone railings and move them out. And then what I'm going to do is, from the very beginning, we had that additional floor piece on top of our foundation. I'm going to select that and duplicate it and move it out to the very end of the walkway. Then clone it, and then move these stone railings back to line them up with the end of the walkway. And then add in a stone railing piece to connect from here to here. And then with that in place, I'm going to select this support pillar piece again and clone it and scale it down to a value of 0.5. And add it to the very end of the walkway, like this. And then clone it to the other sides. Next up, I'm going to add in the skull torches and then the side torches around the level. So I'm going to go to the content browser, search for torch, and here's our skull. Torch pillar 02, select into the world. I'm going to scale this guy down to a value of 0.4 and rotate it by 90 degrees and move it to the top of my round pillar. Like that, and then make a duplicate and then right click, transform across, mirror across x-axis, and then just snap the two pieces together. Notice that there's a small gap here. To fix this, we can adjust our draw scale, our grid scale, sorry, from 16 to a value of 4. So we have more fine control on this mesh. And then with the two pieces selected, we'll just move it to the middle, and we'll change our grid scale back to 16, and then duplicate this guy over to the right. Next, we will go back to our content browser, go to UDK-Torch01, select it, and we're going to scale this guy down to a value of, sorry, I have the wrong item selected. Scale this guy to a value of 0.25. And then place him on these supports over here. Add a little bit of an angle. Move these supports out just a little bit. And then we'll copy this torch. We will duplicate it. And place them on our angled pillars from the beginning of the tutorial. Like this. Again, I'm having trouble trying to center it. Well, I got it centered there, but if you have trouble centering it, you can always change your grid scale to a lower value. So I have this here, I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to place it inside my pillar, roughly inside that circle. And then clone it one more time. Select these two guys, duplicate them, and then mirror across x-axis and take it to the left side. And there we go. We have our lights set up. And lastly, we're going to add that little statue guy up top. So I'm going to go to our content browser, search for statue. Actually, what we're looking for is not under statue, but it's under S_NEC deco. Some crazy name dude thing. Anyways, whatever it is, we're going to select it and place it into the world. And what we're going to do is we're going to scale this guy up to about 5. Rotate 180. Even we can bump it up to about an 8. And then place him behind these rocks. And there you go. For the most part, you have recreated the entire level that I showed you at the start of the tutorial. In the next video, I'm going to cover some more minor details and lighting, and that'll probably be the last video. So look forward to it. Now I'm going to show you how to add in some skybox assets to add more detail around your world, because right now it's very empty and it's not very good for a visual scene. So let's get to it. You want to go to your content browser and then search for under static meshes mountain, and you want SM mountain 01. Select it and put it in the world. When you do this, you'll notice that this asset is very tiny. It's not much of a mountain. What we're going to do is we're going to change the draw scale of this item to a very large value, starting with 800. When you do this, you might think that my asset disappeared, but actually you're inside of the asset. It's that big. So we're going to zoom out, and as you can see, you can start seeing some of the polys of this asset. So we're going to just move it over so that we're not inside of it, and that we can see the asset properly, like that. And then what we can do is lower it down so that it gives sort of a vista view as we look over the waterfalls. Then what we can do is we can duplicate this and change the scale even higher to a value of 1000 and move it a little further back. We can clone it one more time. We can, with the overall draw scale of 1000, we can increase the Z draw scale by like 2, and we get a more elevated peak we can put even further in our background, like that. Just kind of building a mountain range. Then I can duplicate this one and rotate it, pull it into the scene just a little bit, and our sky is starting to fill up a little with some details now. It actually gives the scene some life as if it's in a mountain range. You know, feel free to experiment with different sizes and scales as you feel fit for your level. That's too big. Let's try like 1.5 on that guy. So something like that works pretty nicely. Again, feel free to experiment with different sizes and scales to what you feel is appropriate for your level. And we can put one more over here. and pull this guy in just a little bit. Whoops. And then finally we can clone one to the back of our level. As you can see, this asset is really big, but just keep moving it over until it's behind our level. Something that like that looks really nice, and then you can put one over here. And that should be pretty good. And if you want, you can put one more on the left side. Just do fill in the gaps. Scale this guy down. The Z draw scale back to 1. So something like that. Feel free to experiment with the mountain mesh and adding in your own flavor to the skybox.